U.S. State Department issues travel advisory, warning of wrongful detention in China. China hails military ties with Russia after Wagner uprising. Taiwanese troops exercise in the likely location of CCP military landing sites. Vietnam bans Barbie film over disputed map of China's territorial claims. Chinese state media, British and US people are starving. The U.S. State Department has issued an updated travel advisory, urging Americans to reconsider their travel plans to China due to the risk of wrongful detention. The advisory emphasizes the arbitrary enforcement of local laws and the issuance of exit bans without a fair and transparent process. It said, "The People's Republic of China, PRC government, arbitrarily enforces local laws, including issuing exit bans on U.S. citizens and citizens of other countries, without fair and transparent process under the law." The advisory further warns that U.S. citizens in China may be detained without access to consular services or information regarding their alleged crime. The recent advisory reflects the heightened tensions between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, regime. Secretary of State Antony Blinken's visit to Beijing aimed to improve relations and address other vital issues, including wrongful detentions of Americans. During his visit, Secretary Blinken raised the cases of 3 Americans known to be wrongfully detained in China. Negotiations are currently underway to secure their release. The advisor comes in the wake of recent cases, including a 78-year-old U.S. citizen sentenced to life in prison on spying charges in May. In addition to several detained Americans, 2 Chinese Australians, Cheng Lei and writer Yang Duan, have been held since 2020 and 2019, respectively, without information on their sentencing. Perhaps the most widely known case of arbitrary detention involves 2 Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Kovrig and Spavor were detained in China in 2018, shortly after Canada arrested Meng Wanzhou, Huawei's chief financial officer, on a U.S. extradition request. The Canadians faced charges related to national security, which needed to be adequately explained. After 3 years of detainment, they were released following the U.S. settling fraud charges against Meng. The CCP's actions in these cases have been widely criticized, with many countries calling them hostage politics. These incidents are a stark reminder of the concerns surrounding arbitrary detention in China. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, on July 3rd said it wanted to strengthen military ties with Moscow, which has recently gone through an insurrection led by the Wagner mercenary group. As per a Defense Ministry statement, Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu, who has repeatedly denied military talks with the US, reportedly said, "It is expected that with the mutual efforts of both sides, the relationship between the 2 militaries will keep deepening and solidifying, and will achieve new breakthroughs and heights." Li was speaking at a meeting as he welcomed the head of the Russian Navy, Admiral Nikolai Yevmenov, to Beijing. He told Yevmenov that he wished the 2 countries' navies would enhance communication at all levels and regularly conduct joint exercises and patrols. Before this, China had already supported Moscow and called the uprising Russia's internal affairs. While the incident is widely perceived as one of the greatest threats to Russian leader Vladimir Putin's years in power, Chinese media have been trumpeting his strength to stabilize the nation. State media Xinhua news agency said, Xinhua reporters found that the incident did not cause a major disorder in Russian society, and people's life in Moscow and beyond was barely affected. The Wagner mutiny ended after reaching a deal with the Kremlin that allowed paramilitary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin to leave Russia for Belarus. The Taiwanese military on July 3rd conducted the Tianma exercise at Dialutung military base in Pingtung County for the first time. According to Taiwan News, Dialutung is said to be a potential landing site should the CCP military invade Taiwan. The Tianma exercise is led by the 4th Combat Zone, followed by the forces of the Army's 542nd and 564th Armored Brigades, the 269th and 234th Mechanized Infantry Brigades, Hudadong Defense Command, as well as the Marine Corps' 99th Anti-Armor Brigade. The exercise establishes targets in designated areas at sea to simulate enemy forces. Taiwanese forces fired Humvee-mounted TOW missiles at the targets with 100% accuracy. The 4th Combat Zone says they adhere to the principle, preparing for battle, which could occur anywhere. The exercise aims to help soldiers better prepare their combat skills. Meanwhile, it also familiarizes officers with procedures for ordering missile firings. The exercise also examined the operational mechanisms and performance of Taiwan's weapon systems to determine future training needs, keep pace with functional requirements, and enhance military training. Last week, the Army's Penghu Defense Command conducted a live-fire exercise, Chen Qiang, at the base in Wude. Taiwanese soldiers used different weapons during this drill to fight enemy landings at the beach. Vietnam has banned the Warner Bros. Barbie film from domestic distribution over a scene featuring a map showing disputed Chinese territorial claims in the South China Sea. Local media reported posters advertising Barbie were removed from movie distributors' websites after the June 3rd decision. According to the AP News, Barbie was initially set to open on July 21st in Vietnamese theaters, the same date as in the US. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling starred as Barbie and Ken respectively. V. Kien Tan, Director General of the Vietnam Cinema Department, said the National Film Evaluation Council made the decision. The council said a map in the movie depicts China's 9-dash line, which extends Beijing's territorial claims far into waters that fall within areas claimed by Vietnam and other nations. Barbie is the latest movie banned in Vietnam for depicting China's controversial 9-dash line, which was repudiated in an international arbitration ruling by a court in The Hague in 2016. China refuses to recognize the ruling. In 2019, the Vietnamese government pulled DreamWorks' animated film Abominable. Last year, it banned Sony's action movie Uncharted for the same reason. Netflix also removed the Australian spy drama Pine Gap in 2021. Vietnam and China have long had overlapping territorial claims to a potentially energy-rich stretch in the South China Sea. The Southeast Asian nation has repeatedly accused Chinese vessels of violating its sovereignty. Following a temporary decrease in COVID cases in China, concerns about a global food crisis have resurfaced. A recent study by the Institute of Development Studies, or IDS, at the University of Sussex in the United Kingdom, revealed that 14% of the population is experiencing food insecurity, which is becoming a new normal. State media. British people are starving. In an unusual move, Chinese state media has focused on food shortages in other countries, particularly in poverty-stricken regions. Prominent media outlets like CCTV, Xinhua News Agency, People's Daily, and iFeng have extensively reported food insecurity issues in the UK. They highlighted that 1 in 7 British people did not have enough food last year and relied on aid from food banks. The reports also mentioned a staggering increase in the number of food banks in the UK, from less than 100 a decade ago to over 2,000 in 2021. As of September 2022, 9.7 million people in the UK face food shortages. Many Chinese netizens expressed their displeasure at the CCP's official media coverage of the matter. Commenting on Weibo, lettuce, exploited people this year are not easy to cheat anymore. The US and UK standards of adequate daily intake are very high. Should this be detailed? Does China have any statistics on this? The day before yesterday, it was reported that the British were hungry and cold. Yesterday, it said Americans lost their way on the streets. This morning, it said Australia must go hungry. In the afternoon, it wrote about England starving everywhere. Going to Korea again tomorrow? Japan? Developed countries all have this situation, so developing countries like us do not. Hopefully, the rich people in our country will also stand out to distribute food on the street. The news site Now News commented that the reaction of the people showed that the problem was not in the article itself, but in the fact that mainstream press in China has long focused on internal positive news, deliberately avoiding adverse reports. This strategy of covering the good and showing off the bad to maintain stability has stirred frustration among the Chinese population. For example, Sohu News recently published 9 posters pointing out various societal challenges China faces, such as income disparities, youth unemployment, heavy workloads for elderly individuals, and the pressure on only children to care for their elderly parents. However, these posters were quickly suppressed, presenting a sharp contrast to the official media reports on the food shortage in the UK. Chinese press: 25% of Americans do not have enough to eat. In late March, the Chinese mainstream media outlet Sohu also referred to a report from the Urban Institute, stating that the percentage of American adults experiencing food security issues had risen from 20 to 24.6% between 2021 and 2022. The report also indicated that approximately 16% of respondents in the US relied on free food provided by charitable organizations. Before the COVID outbreak, this figure was 12.7% in 2019, 17.4% in 2021, and peaked at 19.7% in 2020. Consequently, China Daily concluded that 25% of American adults do not have enough food. How many people in China don't have enough to eat? Xi Jinping talks about food security. Chinese leader Xi Jinping emphasized food security during the 20th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, held last year. The Xinhua news agency website released a video titled Dan Yi Real Vi Tian, People Take Food First, in September, asserting that China has achieved grain self-sufficiency and ensured basic and safe food supplies. However, a newspaper report at the beginning of 2019 highlighted China's serious hunger challenges, with approximately 300 million Chinese people facing food shortages, including deficiencies in calcium, iron, zinc, and other essential nutrients. Studies have also linked around 70% of chronic diseases to these nutritional deficiencies. According to the United Nations World Food Programme, or WFP, as of May 2021, approximately 151 million people in China suffer from malnutrition, with 56 million people in rural China living in poverty.